Hello and welcome back to Trojan Sports Now. And baseball season is approaching, and that means we're going to talk a little bit of baseball today with the head coach of the baseball team, Coach Pierce. And building off the momentum of last season, Coach, I know the players, the fans, everybody's excited. How has practice been so far?
Oh, Jonathan, practice has been good. You know, it's funny because it seems like last week we were in Tallahassee playing in that regional. And fast forward through the snowstorm that we got and a few inter-squad games with snow on the ground. But right now things have settled in pretty nicely. The weather did get us behind. I think that can be said for most all teams around our area. But kids have worked hard. A lot of new faces, of course. A lot of things to still figure out about this team. But practices have gone extremely well. And we'll start closing that down a little bit, getting ready for opening day.
One thing you always hear is always ready to see somebody else on the other side of the field. So y'all have been battling each other, starting with Northern Kentucky on February 14th. And you've got some holes to fill, as you mentioned, and that really starts with some of the big bats that you're going to be losing. And in your son Logan Pierce, Danny Collins, Trey Santos, who's going to step up in those holes?
Well, what we need, and we knew this from day one, you know, going back to last year, both Danny and Trey were only juniors that could potentially be returning in the program, both signed professionally. So, yeah, leave some gaping holes late in the process. But fortunately, we had signed a couple of kids that can really swing the bat. Nick Massonia coming from Northwest Florida State Community College and Trevin Hall from Gulf Coast State Community College. Those two guys are kind of fitting in, and then we return Vaughn and Pitts in the middle, Holcomb, Bennett, Knowles in the outfield, Dave Hall as well. Right. So the missing parts have to be filled from players that we've had that's been developing in our program, not necessarily all of those guys have been starting, but those guys that have been developing, getting ready for their time, and of course 2 or 3 new names coming in from the recruiting class. So, hey, Jonathan, replacing 200 plus RBIs and what those kids did, and you know, we always seem to talk about Santos, Collins, Pierce, but I thought Josh McDormand was a big part of how our lineup fell together. And he had such a great year, he forced people to pitch to Trey, and that helped Trey out a bunch. So there's a lot missing from that lineup. It's a great challenge for us and our team this year to figure out how we're going to maneuver around that type of offensive team. So yeah, we'll have to do that with guys that it's their turn that have been in our program and a couple of new names coming in.
Well, have you had to change your philosophy at all with the style of hitting with some of those guys like Santos and Collins? I mean, one swing of the bat and it was a grand slam or a 3-run home run. I mean, are y'all going to play a little more small ball, or do you have some guys that can come in and hit some out?
Well, that's an interesting question and a fair question. But our hitting philosophy has been around hitting doubles. We like the extra base hit. We don't ever talk home run with our guys. The home runs are a benefit of doing what we teach right and just driving the ball out of the park if you're capable of doing that. So we did lead the country again last year in doubles. So we really like the fact that that's our teach and our players are able to execute it at a rate to lead the country.
Right.
With that being said, are we going to lead the country again? Well, you know, I don't know, but our philosophy remains the same because most all good hitters are capable of hitting doubles if that's their focus and that's their training. The number of home runs I probably doubt because last year was a pretty high number. It ranked fairly high nationally as well. Our ballpark with the new bats is a fairly large part in this era of new bats. So I think last year was a bonus type year in the home run department and obviously the doubles as well, but our philosophy will remain the same.
All right. And one of the guys who is coming back is Tyler Vaughn, and he's kind of been a big-time table setter at the top of the lineup last year. Is he? How important is he up there to kind of set the trend for a lot of the new guys coming up?
Well, with an inexperienced team and a lot of new faces, I think it's extremely important to have a player of Tyler's caliber, poise, experience, to be at the top. He's well, every player has things they want to work on during an off season, and he's no different. He was a first-team academic All-American last year, but if you know Tyler Vaughn, that doesn't he doesn't go on what happened yesterday. He's always striving to get better, and he's done that. So he's ready to take on a little bit more of an aggressive role, and he was a great table setter. I think he ended up leading the country or second in the country in runs scored last year. You got to be on base to score runs, and he was very good at that. But he's continuing to try to improve his game, which could take on a little more significant role in run production, maybe driving some in. But he will be in the familiar leadoff spot. So to have that experience at the top of the lineup, I think, is key, especially this year with a younger bunch behind him.
And one of the most impressive things to watch about him is he's always going to battle up at the plate. He is going to see his pitches, and he's not going to strike out. And I think he was one of the top in the country at being the toughest to strike out. So
that is correct. I think he had 10 and 250 plus at bats. That's a phenomenal number in today's game.
Pretty impressive. And let's talk a little bit about pitching. You've got some depth coming back in the starting roles, but you're losing some big guys in the bullpen in Thomas Austin and Nate Hill. So what's going to be happening in the pitching situation this year?
Good question again. A lot of people say, well, you got Hicks and McCain back, so everything's set, right? Well, no, we only have Hicks and McCain back. But no, I mean, we've had guys in our program, Robert Price, Jeremy McGowan, and that list goes on, that have been developing for their moment and their time. So, our bullpen and this and that will be determined on, how well those guys perform and how they come back. We lost two guys, not one, but two that had set the career appearance record in our baseball program. So that experience, that consistency is possibly more difficult to replace than the offensive deal. So, yeah, we've got a lot of holes. We've got a lot of things to fix and find. But that's what happens off of a year like last year, when you had a great senior class and you lose a couple of guys to the draft that were in the junior class. A couple of guys that we had recruited to come in lost in the draft. That makes it challenging for all baseball programs at the Division I level, certainly ours as well. And this will be a year that we will have to try to manufacture. With all that being said, I really like having McCain and Hicks, in games 1 and 2, possibly the best 1-2 punch in the league. So a great place to start. And speaking of start, Will Starling, who went down last year with the elbow problem and Tommy John surgery, appears to be right on track to jump right back in this year, which his progress has been tremendous. Everything's gone smooth. He's throwing great. That would be a big, big boost to this year's staff if, in fact, he can get back in there and be as good, if not better, than last year.
He actually started the season last year as the Friday night starter, so having somebody like him back, I mean, it can't hurt.
No doubt. And, first things first, I'm just glad he's doing so well. As he had his surgery last year, the plan or thoughts were more skip this year and pitch the next. But his progress has just been so phenomenal and easy and seamless that we're thinking now he'll probably choose to go this year.
Well, let's take a look at your schedule. Y'all have got a good slate, especially a good home slate, as y'all have done in the past several years. And it all starts with 2 4-game sets starting next weekend, February 14th, Valentine's Day, against Northern Kentucky, and then Central Michigan coming in. So 2 good out-of-conference opponents. Just talk about those.
No doubt, and that schedule is extremely hard to put together, and Coach Smart does such a phenomenal job at getting the schedule that has the home games in it that our fans like to see, has the RPI, meaning that we need to have nationally to do the things we need to do, getting our team ready for conference play. All of that's a part of putting a non-conference schedule together. He does a fantastic job with all of that. So, yeah, again, it'll be a good home schedule, and it'll be one that will challenge this team a lot. We played Central Michigan a couple of years ago. They had a really, really fine ball club. I'm interested to see them again because they did some things so well. I don't know, I can't remember if it was a senior dominant team that played that well, or that's just who they are year in and year out. But they played extremely well here. Northern Kentucky will be the first time I've seen that team. They're out of the Atlantic Sun, so that's going to be a very interesting start. And then Southern Miss, obviously, is always a top 25 type program. So I'm looking forward to the start. Valentine's Day, as you said, interesting day for the opening season to follow. And I tell all my buddies, I said, what better gift can you give your wife than a ticket to the ball game? I mean,
well, that's what I'm already planning on doing. I mean,
good for you, exactly. So yeah, it's exciting. I'm excited about it, and I think our team will be ready to go.
And speaking of the Sun Belt, you mentioned that another good Sun Belt slate, starting off with South Alabama, and I think that rivalry may have intensified a little bit with some of those games last year, and you faced them for 6 games again this year. I mean, is that rivalry been taken to the next level now?
It certainly was last year, and both teams were older, experienced teams. They'd had battled it out before a lot, and so it all culminated when we went to South Alabama with the conference championship on the line. They beat us in the first game of the series. We came back to take games 2 and 3 and take the championship, the #1 seed. And yeah, it was some intense moments there. I mean, it was some great baseball and some intense competitive moments. So I do think that rivalry has really started to flourish, and rivalries are good. I mean, that brings the best out of everybody. So that's a good thing. Both of our teams this year will be extremely different. All the things that we talk about, loss of player, new player, inexperienced player, they're facing the same thing. But I think our league this year will have Lafayette at the top preseason. I think they finished 3rd last year, but they returned the entire ball club. So I think they'll be the favorite. They're getting a lot of play, top 25, Omaha bound. They're getting a lot of that type talk, as they probably should. So they'll come out 1, but after that, I think it's pretty much wide open with the remaining teams in our league plus the 3 new teams in our league. So it'll be interesting how it all falls into place. But I'm sure Lafayette will be at the top of the preseason poll.
Well, and you do get them here. That's the beginning of April 4th, 5th, and 6th. So that'll be a good series to have. I think they're ranked 14th by 1 poll, having the Raging Cajuns come in here to Troy. Well, Coach, I know you're excited about getting things started. February 14th, as we said, a 4-game series against Northern Kentucky. And good luck to you all this season, and best of luck.
Thank you, Jonathan.
All right, stay tuned for more coming up on Trojan Sports Now.